Hello, friends, and welcome to another video lesson from DBOX. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe and click the bell so that you can be notified of new uploads. This is part of the playlist called Excel tutorial, and here we'll be learning how to freeze panes in Excel. Pane, the spelling is P-A-N-E-S. Okay, so when we have a spreadsheet like this one, viewing the data is okay when we only have a few rows of data or only a few columns in that table that we have. Once the opposite is true, once we start building up our data and more rows are added to our spreadsheet, then we cannot see all the data in one view. So we will need to scroll either vertically or horizontally, isn't it? So when this happens, then that's when we will need to do something like freezing the pane. Some people would call it scroll lock, but you could also call it that. But in Excel, they also use the terms freezing the pane. Okay, freeze pane. So the first scenario we will be having is if, let's just say, look at this. So I have more than 10 rows of data. I have numbered them, but if you notice, if you focus on this top row here, which contains the column headings or column headers, once I scroll down beyond the visible last row here, then you will see what will happen. Either if I use my mouse or my keyboard, if I scroll down, then you will notice that the column heading they disappear from sight. They're out of sight, basically. Okay, so if you wanted to keep or maintain the visibility of the column headers as you scroll down, then you will need to do this thing. So you will freeze the top row. Okay, so to do this, you can click anywhere within the sheet, not necessarily within the table, can be anywhere. And then once your mouse is there, you will go to the View tab of your Excel. For example, if you're in Home, you click on View tab, and then you go to Freeze Panes. You drop it down, and then you click on Freeze Top Row. So earlier, if you noticed, when I scroll down, vertically, the column headers or the column headings went out of sight. They became not invisible, but they just went out of sight because they scrolled upwards. So now we have done the freezing of the top row. Let's see what will happen now once we scroll vertically. So you'll notice that even though we scroll beyond the last data that we have, you will notice that the column headers, the top row, this is the row, is still visible. Okay, that's because of the setting that we've just done. Okay, now sometimes we want to freeze. What we want to freeze is not necessarily the first row, but the first column. Okay, so in my example here, it's not a very good example because I only have a few columns in here, but sometimes your Excel table consists of multiple columns even beyond what can be displayed in one view, such as what you are seeing now are columns A to H. For some, there would be more data beyond the H. Could be up to J, up to AA, which comes after Z or Z. So in that case, you have a different need. Because right now, if I wanted to scroll horizontally, let's just imagine we have data beyond the H, column H here. If I scroll horizontally to the right, now you will notice that the columns disappear, go out of sight. The columns, the first few columns, they disappear. They get out of sight. Okay. So to overcome that, what we will do is freeze pane, but particularly the first column only. Okay, so to do that, again, you will click anywhere within the sheet, and then you go to your View tab or menu, and then you click on your Freeze Panes drop down here, and then you click on Freeze First Column. Okay, with that, the effect is that once you scroll horizontally to the right, you will see that the first column, which is column A, stays visible. You see? So that is important because sometimes you have records, data that consists of multiple tables and rows, but especially multiple tables, I mean multiple columns. And then now you are at the very far end of the data of the sheet, but you wanted to keep track what row it is you're looking at, not necessarily the Excel row here, which is 5, but the column A, because it could be some other piece of information such as employee ID, product code. You know what I mean? So although yes, we know the Excel row number, but that's a different matter. We are talking about to what data of mine does this position here correspond? Let's just say we have a data here, but you wanted to find out to which employee does this data belong. So you can see that it belongs to employee ID 4. Okay, so that's the beauty of that, of scrolling, I mean, freezing the first column. Now we have some other requirements sometimes. It could be that you wanted to preserve the position, the visibility of both the first row and the first column, okay? So this can also be achieved by using the freeze panes functionality, okay? So let's just say you wanted to, again, keep the first column row and the first column visible all the time, even though you're scrolling vertically or horizontally beyond the view. Okay, so what you'll do is you will position your mouse. This one you have to really to position your focus pointer. I think it's called cell pointer. So your focus is like this. If you look at your maximum, if you wanted to display only one row, then you go to the row below it. And then if you wanted to display the first column, then you go to the second column. Okay, so I will highlight it for your visibility, for the benefit of those who cannot imagine. So what I'm saying is I want the first row visible, so I must put my mouse on the second row. At the same time, I wanted to make my first column always visible, so I go to the next column, B. So meaning I should precisely put my cell pointer, my mouse, on this cell B2, which I highlighted in yellow. With that, then you can do the freeze pane. You go to your view tab and then freeze panes, and then you just click on freeze. Okay, before doing that, sorry. So you don't have that option right now because it will go in contradiction with the freeze pane settings that we have done previously. So to do that, because there are currently settings, there's a setting for freezing on the first column. Okay, so let's unfreeze that first. So to do that, you can click anywhere and then you go to view freeze panes and then unfreeze panes. So what with that action, we have removed the freeze setting on this first column. Okay, now we can do what we wanted to do. So again, the point of this third option is to freeze both the first row and the first column. They will stay within sight as you scroll vertically or horizontally. So I'll put my cell pointer here in the yellow cell that I've marked. And then I go to view tab and then freeze panes and then freeze panes again. With that, as if nothing happened, but indeed something happened behind the scenes. And what the change is that once we scroll either vertically or horizontally, you can be assured that all the time the first column, I mean the first row and the first column will always stay within sight. Okay, so let's try. I'll scroll vertically. Okay, and then I'll scroll horizontally. See? Okay, so that's it. Now if you wanted to do a something really, let's just say it's not always that it can only handle the first and the first row, first column. Let's say you wanted to put a freeze or a scroll lock on, you wanted to display the first two rows and the first two columns. Okay, again, you wanted to keep displayed all the time as you scroll vertically or horizontally, depending. The first two rows, the first two rows as you scroll vertically, and the first two columns as you scroll horizontally. What you would do is this: you go to the next one. So if we say first two rows, then you go to the third row, and then the first two columns, and then you go to the third column. So it would be this. Then it would be this. Okay, it's below the first two rows, and it's to the right of the first two columns. Okay, so you'll position your mouse, your cell pointer in here in this cell with a yellow highlight, and then do the same thing: view, freeze panes. No, first we unfreeze. Okay, so put my mouse there again, freeze panes, freeze panes. With that, okay, so let me just correct myself. You cannot simultaneously put a lock, freeze on both the column and the row, but alternately it can, meaning if you're scrolling vertically, then it has control over this, the vertical component. If you are trying to scroll horizontally, it will also have that control. You can see that some elements, some cells get out of size simply because they are not in the first two rows. But already you can see in action the effect of what we have done. So when we scroll horizontally to the right, especially, you will see that the first two columns, A and B, will remain within sight. Okay. Similarly, once you scroll vertically down, you can see that the first two rows, 1 and 2, always remain within sight. Okay, so in this short video, we've learned a couple of things related to freezing a pane or panes in Excel. Freezing the first column if you are scrolling vertically, freezing the first, sorry, that's first row. Freezing the first column when you are scrolling horizontally, and then freezing the pane at any other position. Okay, that is if you want to freeze more than one row, and also you wanted to freeze more than one column. Okay, and we've also learned how to unfreeze, because sometimes there will be a contradiction. So Excel has some logic inside which will prevent it from going crazy. So it will contradict itself if you will put too many freeze settings. Okay, so thank you for watching, and I hope you picked up a couple of things from this short video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe and click the bell and pass the word. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.